Hello and welcome to Channels Book Club. I am Olakunle Kasumo. Last week we introduced to you Patitio's new book titled Why Not? Patitio is a Nigerian political economist and professor of entrepreneurship. The book, which is a memoir, focuses on Professor Utomi's unpleasant experiences during his run for the Delta State governorship position in 2018. It holds little back in exposing the problems and fault lines in Nigeria's difficult political environment. We promise to show you some more of the interview in which Professor Utomi addresses issues in his new book. Before we go into that, let's start with his reading.
I am going to be reading today from this book, my most recent, which is titled Why Not? Citizenship, State Capture, Creeping Fascism, and Criminal Hijack of Politics in Nigeria. I will read from page 1 to page 4. Chapter 1, A Haunting Metaphor. Shortly after I decided to write this book to show how politics underdevelops Nigeria and eclipses the dreams of its founding fathers, a bizarre story was reported in several Nigerian newspapers. The story was about the arrest of a young man who had apparently raped his mother, killed her, and proceeded to sodomize her lifeless body, even as the cops began to manifest rigor mortis. Gory as the report may seem, I saw it as a metaphor sent from heaven. In many ways, it is the story of Nigeria, a country of enormous potential laid waste by those given the most by the country, its most powerful people, who, unfortunately, never managed to become citizens in the classical sense of the word. A thesis I have held for a while is that Nigerians love the business of finger pointing. Who is to blame? As soon as those words are uttered, fingers spring forth, often directed at public office holders and politicians. I was sure many more were deserving of blame, but I was looking for evidence. In 2018, I decided to contest for the gubernatorial candidate of the APC, the political party in charge of government at the center in Nigeria's federal arrangement. It was for the seat of the Delta State governor. And suddenly, there was a flood of evidence. Party apparatchik, senior statesmen, high office holders betraying sacred trust and the oath of their office by the minute, educated middle class who found it all an amusing game and were complicit in their own enslavement, weak institutions, and even the media and academia. The trouble with Nigeria was clearly gang rape of a loving mother by her own children. While some were central to the sordid act, others were cheering and jeering, even as a compassionate mother who sacrificed it all for her children was raped into a coma. Others looked on and were thus guilty by association and failed to exercise citizenship obligations. Such abominations often bring down a curse on heritage. Can this haunting metaphor help us narrow down the reasons why Nigeria's democracy is almost completely out of credibility and legitimacy in the eyes of both its citizens and the world. How does the evidence from my experience show what is wrong, how it went wrong, and what may be done to save Nigeria? Can Nehemiahs arise and rebuild the falling walls of Nigeria? Can dry bones arise and walk from the ruins of Nigeria? And the Nehemiahs amongst them set stock for rebuilding what the rapists damaged as a gasping dear mother struggled for breath.
The journey into strategic irrelevance.
Yeah.
So you put it in your book.
Yeah.
Okay. Prof, you described the 2018 primaries as, you described it in so many awful ways, different pages in the book, very, very worrying. But let me read 175, page 175. You wrote that I did not expect to be given any unfair advantage over any other, but the last thing I could have expected was that the friend would lead the abuse of the rule of law at a level of impunity that will make the APC primaries the most indecent experience I have ever been exposed to. For a man of your experience to say this, means the experience is really awful.
You don't even need for me to share my experience. A couple of days after the primaries, the National Assembly was sitting, the House of Representatives. If you could play back the things said about those primaries by elected representatives of the people, there's nothing I could have said here that remotely approaches what was said in the House of Representatives about those primaries. And then if you want to even come further close, one of the members of that National Working Committee that did this, the Deputy National Chairman, Northwest, a full newspaper interview described it as the worst in Nigerian history. One of those that made the decisions that said that. So you can imagine what it really was. It was bad. It was bad. I described what happened, the sequence, so it's not. We sat at a meeting in Asaba of all the so-called aspirants with the panel. And I tried to describe, and I have this on video. It's not like,
Yeah, so you wrote.
I have it on video too. I can show it.
I need to see that video.
Yes, I can forward it to you. It's not,
Okay.
This is Professor, we are brothers. This is not the US. Just come there and I said, look, every single law governing this thing has been broken. Yes, Professor, it's not a classroom. Oh. This is Nigeria.
You said delegates list were not shared.
Till the voting moment, not shared. Even the chairman of the party, I have him on tape, said that they only saw the list the night before in Abuja, they as the panel. So, okay, you saw it night before. Let's now have it. Now, just so that we'll go look at it before we go to the field. No, he would not, because he didn't have it. There was no such thing.
Prof, rumors have it that in 2015, you were ignored. The government did not give you any position, any office, any role, any board chairmanship, nothing. And therefore, you became bitter and angry and then a bit more outspoken against the ruling party, the current government. So again, I was looking for that in your book. I'm always looking for things when I'm reading. So I saw here in 176 a chat you were having with Dr. Chris Asuluka, your friend. And in that chat, you said, page 176, I laughed and acknowledged that no government since I was 19, some 40 plus years before, had made more effort to shut me out. So you're saying the current government not only didn't avoid, not only did not offer you any seat or position, but actually made efforts to shut you out. That's what this reads to me.
Okay.
Are the rumors true?
That
You got upset and angry because the government sidelined you in 2015.
the biggest relief I've ever had is not being involved. Biggest relief.
Is that with the benefit of hindsight?
Maybe. Yes, it always is. I told a story also, I think, in this book, after the 2015 election, of a friend of mine, Ibrahim Usman, Ibus, it's called, got on the plane from Kaduna and flew to Lagos. And he said to me, I come here because I know you. I know your style. I know you will not ask anybody for anything. And that you get into these things because you think things should be. And he quoted the Quran for me. Told me of one verse in the Quran, I can't remember it obviously off head, that you must ask for something. And that, you know, and he went on. I was disturbed by the conversation because in truth, he knew me well. I've known Ibrahim Usman for 30-something years or so, and we had done assignments together, all kinds of assignments. And he knows my disposition, that for me, office is not reward, it's wahala. Why beg for wahala? But if somebody says to me, no, we need you, I might then say, okay, this is duty or something. But I have never sought office. The Yaradua example is probably one of the best examples. President Yaradua called me. I went to visit with him. We spent hours, literally. He was trying to persuade me about coming into the cabinet. And I was trying to explain to him what has happened in Africa, the so-called cooperative state, where they bring a different voice in and then squash that voice. I said, I don't want this to happen to me. And then he was very persuasive in continuing to say, but how can you make a difference from outside? You need to be inside. Our final position was, okay, so that I'm not just some lone voice that's made a fool of. Find 7 good people, then call me. And then he turned the conversation around and said to me, find 7 good people, bring them to me and come with them. But as you and I know, he took ill shortly after and then passed on. I sent him a list of 7 people, broadly. I do not know if he ever saw that list. I assumed he saw it. And I can say frontally that I assumed that he actually saw it and was turned off the list because 1 or 2 people who were critical of him, like Nasir El-Rufai, were on my list. And I thought, well, there goes Nigerian leadership. Nigerian leaders have to understand that your team doesn't have to be of your best friends. Mm-hmm. You find the best people who can move. The example of Abraham Lincoln, the team of rivals. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, so maybe it was in conversations with people more senior, I can say years later, after he passed, that someone of the standing of the Sultan, for example, said to me, how do you know that he actually saw your list? There's a pretty good chance he went to his grave thinking you snubbed him. And that touched me.
At the point in 2015, I mean, without the benefit of hindsight, in 2015, did you feel let down that you were shut out? I mean, because we all saw what you did to get that government in.
I felt frightened that the country might not go in the right direction.
Your concern?
That's always what has been my concern. And every time we've had these kinds of competition, I've said to people, honestly, seriously, honestly, find a better person to do the job, and I will applaud. I have always had a constant battle of public life distracting from my own main legacy things. But look at me now. Look at the tragedy of what I have to deal with. I'm not a politically exposed person. It affects me. I can do business in many places and all of that. So the cost is very high for anybody who understands and has an alternative. Maybe those who don't have anything else to do, politics is their life. But I have so many other things I can do. And because people try to persuade you that there's nothing you can do that can make more impact if you refuse this call, you do a disservice to your people, then I have a huge guilt conscience. Ideally, left alone, I would not want to touch public life because it has a greater potential for diminishing you than raising you up. In Nigeria, yes.
Professor Patitio, thank you very much for your time.
It's a great pleasure.
It's been nice having this chat with you.
I'm glad I got the chance to.
Thank you.